konbanwa. Irashaimase. Welcome to my not a podcast, Paprika Girls Midnight Diner. Tonight, I am in a diner, although not my own. It is one of my sake hovels, my haunts, if you will, in Kichijoji. In front of me, a glass of Zaku, a staple from the Shimizu Seizaburo Shoten in Mie Prefecture. Around me, a surprisingly subdued lot of happy, drinking people in quiet, intimate discussion over their subjective nibbles. It is just post-bonenkai for me. At the end of the year, various groups from friends to work colleagues to college clubs to hobbyists will gather and drink, literally or proverbially, and congregate with the intention to forget the year. That is what bonenkai actually means, of course. Tonight's bonenkai was a group of dancing friends. The grandmother star of my Indies flick, Chinton-shan, Lady Nishizaki Midori, held a private bonenkai dinner at which she and her students performed. Takahashi Ayu, who played the geisha in my film, also performed. The meal was a set kaiseki dinner, which means that it is a parade of seasonal items. This season is citrus, hirame fish, I think that is flounder. There was karasumi, gindara saikyo yaki, fugu sashimi, ankimomaki, shrimp in a white miso. You know, there's something about food, fish, and flowers. I never learned the English names of most of them. I arrived in Japan when I was around 20 years old and knew nothing about the world. Not saying I know anything about it now at 40, but I can tell most sashimi apart on sight, a good deal of native Japanese flowers, and understand when kaiseki is explained to me because I have been trained to make kaiseki myself. But for the life of me, I could not explain what the English equivalent of these things are. Thank goodness for Google, right? But I wonder. I was raised in Chicago, not a fishmonger's daughter, nor a gardener or in a flower shop, although grandmother did have a remarkable garden. That is, if you had set a fish in front of me, I would not be able to tell you what kind of fish it is. Do Anglophones really have all the fish types memorized? Is this an element of mainstream education that I missed? Every time on X, I mention a Japanese flower or a bit of sashimi and do not translate it, someone inevitably pops up in the comments with the English scientific name of the item in question. Is it a matter of interest that people look it up right away, and then having the English name in their mind, they suddenly understand all about it? If you told me to go and find a yellowtail in a fish market, I couldn't imagine what it would look like. But if I was told to go find booty, I could point it out instantly. This is not a language thing, but simply that I'm in a country, in a culture, in a family that eats sushi twice a week. It's all about environment. You know, this is something I will bring up in Spaces on Thursday. In fact, let me make it la question du jour. For anyone in a bilingual situation, what are the odd translation areas in your language? Do you have trouble translating foods or flowers? Do you understand them better in one language than in another? The reason I'm recording this now is partially because I enjoy the hum of the izakaya and thought it ideal for a backdrop of sound. But it is also because I am terribly busy. I know that when I get home, instead of plopping onto the futon like I ought to, I will discover 10 things that need to be done now, and in an inability to prioritize myself like a proper successful industrialist, I will flit from one project to the next and never get around to recording anything at all. This is the nature of SHIWASU, you know. The Japanese term for December, SHIWASU, means running monk. The image is that of a monk running from one event to the next over the course of the month. And isn't that appropriate for all of us? At the moment, I have overloaded myself in this way. I am, for one, editing a backlog of Zaku production videos. A new one will be uploaded this week, so please do view and share and comment because it goes right back to the company sponsor. And when I finally received comments last time, it made a huge difference. I want to keep making these. Well, I have to finish another script for this one by the 10th, but I already have an idea, so it won't take me long. They're only 15 minutes long, so it only takes a day to write and translate an episode. Next, I'm working on a pitch for the 12th. That's a spec script, a production schedule, and a fixed edit for the teaser. I have one more script to write by the end of January, which is a longer, bigger project set in Nagasaki. But the busier I am with other things, the more ideas I get for this one, so it is making its own progress. I only have 2 knots in the story to untangle, and it should fall into place. But I feel this one is not a script that writes itself, but one that must be rewritten, not written, as the old Hollywood adage goes. I ought to mention that one of my private movies, the Indies film Chinton-shan, recently won the grand prize at the Japan Indies Film Festival. I would like very much to show it to everyone, but I'm at a standstill because it is in consideration for other screenings at other festivals and I cannot show it publicly in an official capacity. I will, one day, release it on YouTube, but I wonder if everyone will just have forgotten by then. The issue is, it's terribly Indies. There's no proper color correction, the cameras are all jaunty, the edit is rough. It was filmed over 4 days with a bunch of friends who had some free time and slapped together overnight. It wasn't meant for wide distribution, so even a re-edit won't really make it proper cinema, although I could reshoot some of it. But is it worth it? A YouTube release might be enough. I need to think about it. The aftermath of the film festival, however, is recognizing that there is a lovely community of filmmakers here which really needs some volunteer help. I'm meeting with the team this week and organizing the photos that Weekly Fascination was so kind as to film for me so that all parties get them in time to show off for Christmas. That's also happening right now. On to private matters. My nephew's flat Stanley is here in Japan, so I must take him to visually appealing places and events to show kids in Santa Cruz what Japan is like during the year end. I write a diary entry for him with photos every other night. Just 1 page, but it is a task. I brought him to tonight's party and have mochitsuki and all sorts of plans in the works. Then I also have the Eternal Expat, which I tasked myself with and have written one for tomorrow, but not the next week. I should have just drawn them all in a batch at one time, but I did not, and I don't know why I didn't. Last week, no one really commented, which was disappointing. But this is just an experiment after all. It may catch on in a couple more tries. Algorithms and such crossed my mind the other night, and I researched best time to post, even relying on Grok, which I'm finding better than Google in many ways. But the fact is, my audience is spread across time zones, and I don't really care about how many likes a post gets. But I do hope that everyone sees the post, and that it is an engaging and not an annoying side. I would love to hear more people's stories. Let's see. I have 2 other video projects and a comic book project which are completely on the back burner for now too. They pop up into my head when I'm too busy to think of them, as things do. 3 posters to print, 1 to photograph. Oh my. I need to work that into the schedule on the 17th, don't I? Well, finally, There is the everyday chores and errands. I need to address the Christmas cards and send them now. I need to pay a couple neglected bills. I need to stitch up my husband's kimono collar for Friday, rewrite the calendar in the kitchen, and visit the chonaikai head. All this plus the laundry, the dishes, the floor polishing, and the garden. And I also have the golf lessons, the shamisen lessons, and dance. There will be bonenkai for all of those, inevitably. Yes, that's 3 more bonenkai this month. And one of them which I'm hosting myself on the 19th. I am a running monk. Let me change the topic to something more freeing. Although I plan to record once more before the year's end, I shall reflect on the season a bit. This is the ideal moment for koyo, the changing of the leaves. Early on we have the yellow leaves of icho turning the pavement gold, but after that we have the ever-deepening red of momiji leaves. Now, this is the time of year when we in the tea world collect perfect branches of momiji and freeze them for next year. This way, we can use them as plate decoration in the beginning of November, before they are in proper season, to hint at the oncoming changes. It is iki, or classy, to do everything slightly early, to make those around us look forward to what's coming next. Not Christmas in July, that is too early, but about 2 to 3 weeks early. Come to think of it, November is too early for Christmas decorations. Every year I purposefully ignore them until December 1st. Christmas does not exist in my world until December. Then, bring it on, Bing Crosby. Gang ho. From now on, Nengajo season starts. Today I requested everyone in the Gaijin Twitter collective send me their addresses. I should have drawn the Nengajo earlier, but let's not think about the things that I have procrastinated, right? At the end of the year, there is osechi to make and plans to be made. Shall we return to the Jikka or shall we stay home? It is unusual for us to stay home, but we have, because there are times when the internal family politics have been spicy. I would like to go into the drama of politics one day because it's rather entertaining, but I also feel like some might yell, "Too much information, you silly old woman." But everyone has home drama because that is what life is like. Either way, my mother-in-law never made osechi, but grandmother did. So I took what I learned from her and usually make it here in Kichijoji with 2 of my neighbors. That must be arranged for later this month. Also, usually in November, but sometimes in December, the neighborhood will be abuzz with gardeners. One must keep their garden tidy and cut it nicely to prepare for the new year. Not just gardens, but also the nail salon will be full of customers, the hair salon, and the gym. With impending parties to attend, one wants to enter the new year all shiny and fresh. Osoji occurs at this time of year too. From the 13th of this month through the 29th, temples, businesses, and homes scrub their abodes clean. They rid of old, dusty, and broken things, fix what needs to be fixed, and clean out the cobwebs. I shall post about it when the time comes, but that is also a very seasonal event. Just one more thing. As I gaze out the window here, I notice the illuminations. Christmas lights. All over the country, the Japanese parks and towns are aglow with Christmas lights. They may be big displays and events, gathering crowds to enjoy the view. I remember every now and then going to see illumination festivals when I was young and unmarried. Now, I am content to view them in front of my station as I do my shopping or have a drink. If you have kids, or are perhaps a poor couple in search of something romantical to do, illuminations may be the answer. Now, a bit about the Gaijin Twitter Collective. Kurt, Congratulations on your impending big move. I am very much enjoying scrolling through the timeline and seeing the changes happening. They inspire me and remind me that time is moving gradually and steps are being taken. In no time at all, you will be safe in Japan, far from trigger herbs and past regrets, and on to the new chapter of freedom in the land of rice and sake. I truly look forward to seeing you sometime early next year, perhaps in Shizuoka. On your mention of One Cut of the Dead, in Japanese that's called kamera o tomeru na, or Don't Stop the Camera. This is a film from a few years back, which, in a strange fluke, went completely viral. That's great for the cast and crew, except that, since it was indies, the producer made off with all the proceeds and no one got any of it, except for the Peasley agoashi fee. Agoashi, literally mouth and feet, is very standard for indies films, which means pretty much no money at all. To reflect on it, though, films like that are why I went into filmmaking. They are essentially films about films. New Cinema Paradise, Bullets Over Broadway, Hail Caesar, even Animaniacs or Sunset Boulevard, All About Eve, Bowfinger. Japanese films like The Show Must Go On and Kamata Koshin-kyoku, or A Jazz Star is Born. Jazz Musume wa Tanjou. A jazz daughter is born. A jazz lady is born. Anyway, there's a whole genre about how much fun and what a mess filmmaking is. I would encourage you to attend film festivals, even little ones, just to listen to the stories of the creators. Every film has a backstory within itself. Weekly Fascination. I have discovered it lives quite near, so I've invited him to Rakugo performance and to film in the nearby park. Though I have not edited the material yet, it is in the backlog. It is wonderful to connect with ex-fellows in the Gaijin Twitter collective. I've also taken Star Ikebana kimono shopping. He looks wonderful in kimono, doesn't he? And good news, you all know Gaijin Oto-san is back. My goodness, I see him in my DMs and all is right with the world. For those who don't know, Gaijin Oto-san was a staple character on X only a few months back, a model of positivity and precious Gaijin naivete, as he attempted to grapple with an almost movie script level move from the bustle of New York City to the backwater tea cultivating hills of Shizuoka. Well, it was all right for a while, but stories need their twists and turns, and eventually Gaijin Oto-san took his sweet kiddo back to New York for a reset. And yet, our hero returns, this time with hints of moving to the city, which is a perfect balance for the cosmopolitan heart of this visual artist. Gaijin Oto-san, would you tell us your story? We'd love to hear it in your words. Now, Dave, thank you once again for the lovely charcoal. Lots of love to Yoko, too. Dave's wife, Yoko, is a tea lady, like me, often attending and holding tea ceremonies, which Dave often posts about. Dave is such a creative soul, always plucking at the banjo and musing so peacefully, but fully into the art and creative use of whatever God has put before him, be it bamboo, antique paper, or other clippings of life. If there is anyone who I can say with confidence is living right in the moment, it is most certainly you, Dave. He's Uncle Weed on X. I love his stories about early days in Japan, an adventure and experience. Though challenging, it did not prevent you from living out the rest of your years in this land. What I'm enjoying these days is getting to know people who have chosen to grow old here in Japan and make it their home. I recently saw an online ad that attempted to localize by setting the scene in Japan, but all they showed was neon lights and Akihabara and anime and toys and consumption. to put it in the words of writer Craig Hoffman. But that's only one sliver of what Japan is about. That's the young, the fast, the onyu, and the modern. What seems to keep us long-time immigrants here, though, is the wabi-sabi, the elegantly aging analog world of nature, healthy foods, and deep cultural rabbit holes. One day, I hope to visit Okayama. I'm working on a project for Nagasaki, so at some point this year I will go out west. I have so many podcasts to get to, too. I think that is how I shall use my year-end break at the Chica. Just listening to podcasts. And writing. And editing. It seems when one does not have time, one must make time. Everything needs to be made. Okay, I do not know how long I have rambled, but I hope to see you all at the spaces held by Tracy on Thursday. I have noticed that our listeners have increased in number each time. I hope that more of you chime in. It's lovely to hear podcasters, and not podcasters, ramble on about Japan. But if you have something to say or a question, dive on in. This is for everyone. 日本語でも良いです。For now, I want to order another glass of Zaku. It's quite delicious tonight. おやすみ。